This presentation will critically consider human trafficking in southeastern Europe with a concentrated focus on the problems for authorities when attempting to combat this growing issue. The presentation will essentially incorporate key aspects such as who traffickers are, organisations of trafficking networks and groups, as well as corruption and the abuse of influence. Eastern European countries are among the most affected by human trafficking. The underlying problem is socio-economic conditions in these nations. These conditions create frustration amongst individuals within, leading to many seeking migration from the east to richer countries in Western Europe. The major source countries of origin for human trafficking according to Europol and the International Labour Organization are Belarus, Bulgaria, Moldova, Romania, Russia and Ukraine. In addition to this, with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the opening of borders between the east and the west, trafficking began to increase rapidly. Unregulated change from a state-controlled to a market economy often resulted in mass unemployment, a breakdown in social assistance and widespread poverty. Petronov believes that these issues are still today the main reason for migration and trafficking in this region. Following this, between 1990 and 2000, more than 10 million people from the Balkan Peninsula migrated to other countries, out of a total population estimated to be around 80 million in this region. Since the communist regime collapsed, both South and Eastern Europe became transit points for victims who were in the process of travelling into the EU. Both the Charter and the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights confirm that all rights are universal. Trafficked persons are entitled to a full range of rights, even outside of a country of residence. International law is clear that trafficked persons cannot be discriminated against just because they are non-nationals. Human rights apply to everyone within a state's territory or jurisdiction, regardless of where they are from or how they have arrived. Human rights law prohibits forced labour, defined by the Convention No. 29 concerning forced or compulsory labour of the International Labour Organization as all work or service which is exacted from any person under the menace of any penalty and for which the said person has offered him or herself voluntarily. Preventing trafficking refers to positive measures to prevent future acts of trafficking policies and activities that are seen to be addressing the causes of trafficking. International law confirms states bear some responsibility for preventing the occurrence of an internationally wrongful act. The standard implied in this obligation, once again, is one of due diligence. The state is required to take all responsible and necessary measures to prevent a given event from occurring. Throughout south-eastern Europe, there is a stereotypical image of what a trafficker looks like. Alexandru and Lazaru state that the typical stereotype for him is a middle-aged man unknown to the victim who deceives her and traffics her into prostitution. Traffickers can be male or female. In most cases in this region, recruiters are men. However, it is crucial to consider the emerging trend in human trafficking, which is female recruiters, and each year this number continues to rise. Surtees comments in her work how female recruiters had been made by traffickers to persuade their friends to work in a destination country with them, where there was a chance for them to escape economic crisis and experience a different lifestyle, but they were unaware of the intention to exploit, essentially playing an unintentional part in recruitment. As part of this developing trend, other females that are involved in the process are former or current victims who are thankful of their trafficker in allowing them to return home and work to recruit other women. Likewise, this is under the watchful eye of others working in the trafficking group to guarantee that the victim conforms to the rules, and fundamentally this will prevent escape. In southeastern Europe, organised criminal groups complete a vast amount of trafficking. This differs depending on location, as there are different levels in the hierarchy of organised criminal groups. For instance, in southeastern Asia, trafficking is in most cases informal and managed through personal connections. Trafficking systems that operate in southeastern Europe usually have a solid organisational structure acting in one or more locations and in multiple markets. Organised criminal groups in southeastern Europe have the intelligence and ability to take numerous routes that are both legal and undercover. Traffickers in this region are known to apply a managerial approach with this type of work and have the skill to adapt to ongoing change in supply and demand. So corruption plays a massive part for traffickers' networks within the region, permitting criminals in this area to develop and expand throughout southeastern Europe. In terms of corruption, this lies with government authorities and officials such as politicians, law enforcement officers and foreign service staff. This type of corruption helps trafficking networks extensively in numerous ways, providing criminals with the fabrication of documents overlooking venues that host trafficking events and illegal border crossings. Moreover, corruption also sees officials present a lack of information for the prosecution, ultimately helping reduce the offender's sentence. Some organised criminal groups include former professionals who have the experience and knowledge to help avoid detection from law enforcers. In addition to this, corruption breaks down the victim's trust in the law enforcers and often prevents them from attempting to escape. This issue makes it even more difficult for authorities who have a sole aim of fighting trafficking. To conclude, human trafficking in southeastern Europe is a growing issue that needs a new and improved prevention method implementing quickly and efficiently. Throughout the presentation has entailed the challenges in which government bodies has faced within modern times, from media amplification to organisations within the criminal world. In some cases, these groups are assisted by government officials and individuals that have previously worked in a field that can be beneficial for certain networks. Trafficking persons is a wide-ranging subject with in-depth analysis and concentrated focus needed. Criminals have the ability to adapt and move inconspicuously, essentially helping them avoid the law. In addition to this, even though human rights legislation is in place and has a solid structure, the importance of human rights seems to disappear into the background each year as more people become victims of trafficking. This presentation has established how much socio-economic conditions impact on human trafficking in this region, and this is arguably what needs to be the primary concern for states desperate to bring transformation.